This story will hit you square in the gut, so stop whatever you're doing. Yes, Malcolm. Malcolm left behind more than simply a legacy. He left behind a daughter so shattered that Pamela Warner herself can hardly function, chaos and unsolved mysteries. Let me ask you a question now. When your last recollection of your father is tragedy rather than laughter, how can you move on? When every picture of him seems to be a ghost looking directly into your heart? And why is it that every time the cameras roll, Pamela breaks down? Are we witnessing sorrow? Or is there something more significant that no one wants us to be aware of? Because people, here's the thing. According to the official account, Malcolm drowned. Easy, tidy, and the case is over. However, Pamela's daughter claims that what she observed is inconsistent. She shook and had fear in her eyes when she saw her father's photos. Hints of something sinister. While Pamela breaks down, confesses, and cries in ways that the media can't condense into a catchy headline. Hold on tight, because we're discussing more than simply Malcolm's passing today. Unleashed is revealing the storm's hidden side. You're not prepared for what's going to happen next, I assure you. Death, so the saying goes, should bring serenity. But in Malcolm's case, oh no, it carried with it a trail of tears that might drown a whole city, disarray, and mistrust. Everyone anticipated a respectful and quiet farewell. Rather, we witnessed Pamela Warner's on-camera breakdown, a daughter who was too broken to breathe without terror, and 100 questions that the purported official version couldn't possibly address without a cheat sheet stuck to its forehead. Malcolm's passing wasn't merely another news article with an obituary in the back. Did you hear what really happened? Became the headline, the town's buzz, and the topic of conversation at the dinner table. And that's where the scandal starts, my friends. People began to wonder, why is the daughter so traumatized? Why does she scream at the sight of Malcolm's picture? And why does Pamela sound like she's hinting at something darker every time a microphone is shoved in her face? When Pamela Warner, a woman known for her composure, began to cry, tremble, or simply collapse whenever she mentioned her daughter's condition. Naturally, the media jumped on it like hungry wolves. Headlines about Malcolm's daughter being plagued by his death and Pamela Warner's emotional breakdown generated clicks and sold newspapers. However, beneath those cheesy titles lay a maelstrom that no reporter dared to truly investigate. Too messy, too hazardous, and too dependent on powerful individuals. Remember that Malcolm's name has been associated with scandal before. Oh no. If you rewind the tape, you'll see a past that makes this catastrophe seem more like a ticking time bomb than fate. There are rumors of dubious business dealings, late-night phone conversations with people you don't want to be seen with, and a luxurious lifestyle that belies the official salaries, which appear curiously low. Hey, no one wanted to discuss it while he was still living. Too risky, too unpleasant. The murmurs are no longer whispers now that Malcolm is gone. Their cries reverberated online. Forums erupted with hypotheses. Insider information was leaked by anonymous accounts, and others posing as close friends abruptly appeared with plots that sounded like Netflix thrillers. Is it a coincidence? Or a media circus profiting from a bereaved family at the right moment? The focal point of this tragedy, Pamela's daughter, has come to represent unsolved mysteries. Although she doesn't say much, her silence is really powerful. This is more than grief, as evidenced by every tear, breakdown, and panic attack we see in Malcolm's pictures. It's traumatic, trauma that suggests a truth that is more than 6 feet under. Let's now discuss the alleged official justification: drowning. Really? They expect us to swallow that nice little packet. I don't believe it. Pamela, it seems, doesn't either. She has alluded subtly in her infrequent emotional outbursts that the reality her daughter saw differs from the fairy tale she was told. That ought to have been sufficient to start a thorough investigation. However, the cops did submit their report. The media agreed, and everyone, aside from the family, was told to move on. It's impossible to move on, especially when the daughter was present. Something caught her eye. What precisely? We're not sure. The horror in her eyes whenever Malcolm's name is spoken tells us everything we need to know, even if Pamela and the girl are unable to speak. The story is more complicated than they would have us think. I'll give you an example. Pure father-daughter love was captured in the final video Malcolm ever took before to the catastrophe. With a silly smile, he placed the flower his young child gave him behind his ear, an eternally preserved moment of innocence. That bloom now serves as a harsh reminder of what was lost. When the cameras are off and everything is silent, it's the kind of recollection that makes you cry at Emma and Pamela's sobs, her quivering voice, and her inability to simply accept the story. The tricks aren't these. The weight of the truth is causing this woman to break. A fact that is too risky to state out because once you do, there's no turning back. Nevertheless, the entire world waits for her to make a mistake. For that one statement, that one interview, that one leaked video footage where Pamela Warner finally expresses what everyone is thinking. That it wasn't a coincidence that Malcolm died. That drowning wasn't the only thing. That this disaster was caused by something or someone. But we're left with the pieces until that day arrives. The daughter's eerie stillness, Pamela's breakdowns, and the persistent question that nags at everyone's brain. Who gains from Malcolm's passing? Because let's face it, there is always a winner in a tragedy this significant. Profit is always made by someone. While the family disintegrates in front of the curtain, someone always smiles behind it. And welcome to reality if you find that too grim or pessimistic. Because nobody can afford the luxury of innocence in this world. Not even the daughter of Malcolm. If the first section was about suspicion, we're going right into the thick of things now. Because people didn't just chatter when rumors of Malcolm's death began to circulate. They went into full detective mode, and you know how the internet operates. You can find whole Reddit posts with time frames, fictitious maps, and knowledgeable swimmers arguing why the underwater story doesn't add up with just one breadcrumb. Furthermore, some of those explanations seem more plausible than the official narrative, to be honest. Consider a purportedly leaked police document that circulated online. It stated that on that particular day, the undertow was mild at that particular beach. Gentle. Malcolm, a healthy man who was accompanied by other swimmers, was dragged under while the others were unharmed. According to the story, isn't it convenient? Too easy. In addition, the unnamed source who surfaced on Twitter claimed that Malcolm had been threatened in the weeks leading up to the trip. Screenshots of strange emails and direct messages, whether authentic or fake. They ignited social media. Nothing captivates the public more like a terrible celebrity death wrapped in a conspiracy bow. So imagine the hashtags. Justice formal. What actually occurred. Pamela speaks. ... The interviews with the family friend followed. Boy, oh boy, all of a sudden, every neighbor's dog walker, high school friend, and third cousin had something to say. He appeared anxious. He admitted to me that he was afraid to travel. There was turmoil at home, he suggested. Did these individuals truly exist, or were they only opportunists attempting to capitalize on Malcolm's passing? In any case, it depicted a man whose final days were not as tranquil as the public relations narrative implied. Meanwhile, Pamela's reputation was deteriorating. The fire was simply fueled by each sad interview and wobbly statement. The internet went crazy when she added, "I don't think my granddaughter saw just a drowning." By that, what did she mean? Was the child pushed by someone? Did she saw him struggle in a manner inconsistent with drowning? Or was Pamela blinded by loss and merely clinging to what she had? Naturally, the public's response was divided. The other half answered, "Nope, this smells fishy." The other half added, "Leave the family alone. They're grieving." The second half is more noisier on social media, let's face it. With eerie background music, you had TikTokers creating conspiracy edits. YouTubers are releasing videos exposing the truth about Malcolm's death more quickly than Starbucks releases pumpkin spice lattes in October. And the comments, complete mayhem. This was no coincidence. Pamela is more knowledgeable than she admits. Observe, this will be an unresolved Netflix documentary in a year. And to be honest, given the money trail, they might not be mistaken. Additionally, if you have any knowledge of scandals, you can locate the bodies by following the money. Word on the street once more, completely unconfirmed. Malcolm had been covertly funding a dubious offshore venture, wink wink. Big bucks offered something about land in Costa Rica, but there were dubious partners involved. And you know what? documents revealing abrupt transactions, closed accounts, and disagreements between business partners appear shortly after his passing. "Oh, wait" is the only thing you can write. People had already done so. Let's take a moment to think. All of this may sound like a soap opera, and for good reason. It is a tragic soap opera with broken lives and actual tears at its core. Pamela doesn't stage her breakdowns. Although her granddaughter's trauma isn't scripted, vultures, including media, financial, and possibly even political ones, are circling their unfiltered agony. It gets dark at this point. There were whispers from anonymous sources that Pamela was being silenced. Naturally, not directly, but rather through subliminal alerts, unlocked doors, and odd calls in the middle of the night. Don't press this note any further. Traditional intimidation techniques from a thriller. In one interview, Pamela herself alluded to feeling monitored. And you don't ignore it when a distraught mother states that in writing. Malcolm's innocent daughter, caught in the crossfire, turned into the lightning rod in the meantime. Videos of her sobbing in class, unable to concentrate, went viral on the internet. Some are empathetic, while others are predatory. She was portrayed as the primary witness to whatever happened, as well as a vulnerable youngster. Isn't that too much pressure for an 8-year-old? On the other hand, boundaries have never been important to the general population, when tragedy appeals to people. Oh, and the memes. Naturally, because the internet is the internet, even tragedies are used as fodder for memes. Pamela's heartfelt scream was snipped and overlaid with dramatic music. Others juxtaposed conspiracy videos of previous celebrity deaths with the official drowning narrative. The best or worst of dark humor. But there were still important questions hidden beneath the clamor. Why was the case closed so fast by Costa Rican authorities? Why wasn't his health, finances, and alleged traveling partners examined in greater detail? And why, of all people, did Pamela appear to be the only one demanding clarifications while everyone else became silent? According to one especially spicily characterized leak, Malcolm had informed folks that he couldn't swim and wouldn't risk it. Therefore, he wasn't even supposed to be in the water that day. Nevertheless, he found himself in an undertow trap waist deep. It's not even close to being suspicious. Some conjectured that he was duped, seduced, or perhaps coerced into going there. While, yes, impossible, not in this circus, Pamela, in one emotional plea, begged the public, don't let his legacy be buried under lies. Don't let his daughter grow up with unanswered questions. And that was the spark. Petitions popped up online demanding a reinvestigation. Thousands of signatures poured in. Hashtags trended again. The noise grew louder. And when noise grows too loud, powerful people start to sweat. Which brings us to the fallout, because you can't suppress a scandal forever. At some point, the cracks in the wall start showing. And with Malcolm's death, those cracks were starting to look like open wounds. The more Pamela cried, the more the world believed she was crying, not just for grief, but for justice. And that, dear viewers, is where things really started to heat up. When a storm brews this big, it can only stay contained for so long before it spills into the streets, the courts, and the headlines. And Malcolm's death, it was no longer just a tragedy. It was turning into a scandal with legs, teeth, and claws. The first signs of fallout came quietly. A Costa Rican government spokesperson tried to downplay the situation, insisting the drowning case was closed and no foul play suspected. Translation: move along. Nothing to see here. But by then, too many people were already asking questions. Too many bloggers, vloggers, and armchair investigators were digging up receipts. And when the noise got loud enough, international media had no choice but to pick it up. Suddenly, Malcolm's death wasn't just a family's heartbreak. It was a geopolitical hot potato. U.S. senators were concerned. Talk show hosts made emotional monologues. Celebrities tweeted cryptic tributes that almost read like accusations. And of course, the internet doubled down. If the government says case closed, that means it's wide open. Pamela, caught in the center of the storm, kept speaking out. And each time she did, her words were like gasoline on an already raging fire. She didn't accuse anyone directly, but her tone said it all. My son was not an experienced swimmer. He should not have been there. Something doesn't add up. Boom, viral clip. Millions of views. thousands of shares. The court of public opinion was in session, and the jury was out for blood. And then came the leaks. Oh, the glorious messy leaks. Reports of strange financial transactions right before Malcolm's trip. Allegations that his business partners were already fighting over his assets within days of his death. Screenshots of emails where Malcolm supposedly expressed fear for his safety. Were they real, fake, AI-generated? Honestly, it didn't matter. Perception is reality. And the perception was clear. This wasn't just drowning. This was dirty. Public reaction hit fever pitch. Protests broke out. Yes, actual protests with signs reading "Justice for Malcolm." And who's protecting the truth? Think about that. An actor's mysterious death had escalated to street demonstrations. That's how powerful the narrative had become. And if you think the authorities could ignore it, think again. Under mounting pressure, Costa Rica announced a review of the case. Not a full reinvestigation, just a review. Classic government move. But the headlines, they made it sound like the trial of the century was about to kick off. Meanwhile, whispers of FBI involvement spread like wildfire. Anonymous Twitter accounts claimed Malcolm's business. Others swore his phone records were being pulled apart. Whether any of it was true, no one knew. But it made for juicy content, and that's all the internet needed. But the real kicker, Pamela's granddaughter, the child at the center of this mess. The media, shameless as always, zeroed in on her trauma. Key witness, they called her. Tabloids speculated about what she saw that day, as if an 8-year-old processing her father's death was just another reality show plotline. Clips of her crying, her refusing to look at Malcolm's photos exploited for clicks, dissected for clues, and every time Pamela begged for privacy, only for the cameras to zoom in closer. And yet, her silence became its own kind of testimony, because if she did see something and if she is too scared to talk, doesn't that alone prove the official story has holes? The public thought so, and so the frenzy only grew. Now, let's talk about the money trail again, because scandals don't survive on emotion alone. Remember those shady offshore investments? Well, more documents leaked supposedly showing that Malcolm was tied into land deals worth millions. Land controlled by powerful businessmen with reputations darker than midnight. And suddenly, Malcolm wasn't just a victim. He was a liability. A liability worth eliminating. Of course, none of this was ever confirmed. But when has that stopped the internet from declaring someone guilty? Hashtags like Takrar, who killed Malcolm, and Marcar, Costa Rica. Cover-ups started trending worldwide. Every TikTok conspiracy creator with a ring light and a microphone turned into Sherlock Holmes overnight. Look at the tide charts. Zoom into this blurry photo. Listen to Pamela's tone here. It was chaos. Beautiful. Addictive chaos. And with chaos comes consequences. The Tourism Board of Costa Rica reportedly panicked, fearing this scandal would tank beach travel. Some U.S. politicians used it as ammo, calling for safer travel agreements. Malcolm's business partners went underground, deleting social media, refusing interviews. And Pamela, she doubled down, vowing to create a foundation in Malcolm's name, both to honor him and between the lines to keep his story alive until the truth comes out. But here's the thing, truth is slippery. For every fact leaked, there was another to contradict it. For every eyewitness, another said the opposite. It became a hall of mirrors where reality and fiction blurred so much that even seasoned journalists gave up. But the public, they loved it, because the less clear the truth is, the more room there is for speculation. And speculation is entertainment. So what now? Will we ever know what really happened that day? Was it just a tragic accident as the authorities claim? Or was Malcolm pulled into something far more sinister? Financial betrayal, business feuds, even targeted foul play? And if so, how much does Pamela know? How much does her daughter know? How much do we not know? The fallout isn't just about Malcolm anymore. It's about trust. Trust in the media. Trust in the government. Trust in the systems that are supposed to protect us, but so often cover things up instead. Pamela's tears became a symbol. Her daughter's trauma became a rallying cry. And Malcolm, he became more than an actor, more than a father, more than a man. He became a story that refuses to die, no matter how many officials try to bury it. And maybe that's the ultimate scandal, that sometimes a death says more about the living than the dead. That the chaos after Malcolm's final breath might be his true legacy. Not the sitcoms, not the music, not even the Grammys, but the questions. The messy, painful, unanswered questions that haunt a family, a community, and now the world. So, buckle up because this isn't over. In fact, it may just be beginning. So, here we are standing at the edge of the storm. Malcolm is gone. Pamela is shattered. And his daughter, she's broken in ways words can barely describe. But the bigger question, the one haunting every single person watching this right now, is simple. Was this really an accident or something darker? Think about it. The official story doesn't match the emotions we've seen from Pamela. The money trail doesn't match the so-called happy family trip. And the silence around the daughter doesn't match the idea of a simple drowning. Too many cracks to many unanswered questions. And yet the world keeps spinning like nothing happened. Governments. Governments say case closed. Media says it's time to get on. But should we or do we? Oh, Malcolm, Pamela, and that little girl, something bigger, something like the truth. Because here's the real scandal, folks. Truth only survives if we demand it. If we stay loud, if we refuse to let powerful people bury uncomfortable stories. Pamela can cry on television, but her tears disappear into the noise. So, I'm asking you no. I'm daring you to weigh in. Did Malcolm's death just happen by accident, or was it staged? Do you think that Pamela knows more than she can say? If you think that Malcolm deserves justice, hit the like button. If you're ready for more truth bombs, the mainstream media won't touch. Because one thing is certain, this story isn't finished. Not even close.